Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at such a thing as proxy with UDP protocol. Typically, most people have never seen these types of proxies and thus don't know how to use them. Still, they exist. This subject was touched on by Vektor T13, and since he has covered it, I would also like to give my own comments on it. Let's begin with the first topic. And it, according to the author, is the best proxies. In this video he creates a small proxy service and promotes his own proxies accordingly. In fact, if we watch the video, we won't find any advertisement of his proxies. Instead, he advertises VPN accesses. In this case, UDP can be applied, but he kind of discredits the Socks protocol. He argues that there are Socks with UDP, but actually he says that he doesn't have them. In other words, they don't support UDP. So, he states that there are no such programs that support this protocol. Now, let's take a closer look at the first video. I will skip this part and start somewhere from the 10th minute.
In this case you will not have an IP address and DNS. I draw your attention, since there are almost no actual working proxificators UDP protocols. Some attempts are currently made to create such proxificators, but unfortunately they seem to be unsuccessful.
So, as for this particular statement, I would say that Double SSH Tunnel Manager has been actually able to support UDP protocol proxies for 2 years now. But it is not quite correct to call it proxificator, because basically proxificator is more like the proxifier program which redirects traffic into some particular process. But if we create a network gateway, it will be connecting to a gateway rather than proxifying. Now, if we connect a proxy to a gateway, both proxy and connection shall be able to support Socks5 with the UDP protocol support. Accordingly, the server must be with the UDP protocol. So, what Socks do we have with the UDP protocol? I'm not going to talk about some services, but about software which supports this protocol. Let's search for the proxy. It's called 3proxy.ru, if I'm not mistaken. This is probably the site. Right, this very proxy supports the UDP protocol. But there are not many clients that support it. But in fact there is the Double SSH Tunnel Manager client that actually supports the UDP protocol. If we, for example, insert this Socks in a browser or in Proxifier, we will find that there's no support for it. Now let's consider the example of how it all works. For this I took a remote server and turned off the firewall, as you can see, so that we have all the traffic going back and forth. Then I turned off the defender because it deletes the 3proxy file, and then got everything connected. Now I will explain everything. Firstly, we go to the Double SSH Tunnel Manager program, then to the Utilities folder. And here we have such thing as yggdrasil GUI. This is basically a 3proxy GUI server, but not the simple one. A little later I will explain why I took the yggdrasil 3 proxy. So here we have the remote server. It has an IP address 45.8,268.238 inch. By and large, this remote server is connected directly to the global internet. Then, having Socks launched, we get this address. Furthermore, the incoming and outgoing addresses are the same. At this stage, this is the only way the UDP protocol can be supported. Now, if we allow this address to pass through the chain of another proxy, it will not support any UDP. In other words, the proxy will be operational, but the UDP will not pass through. So let's take a look at it. I have my proxy already launched, but I'll stop it and start the program from the very beginning. It will appear like this. At the very bottom there is the choice of network interfaces. We have one network interface and it has, respectively, the global internet IP address through which we will communicate with the world. If there are numbers of local addresses like 192.168 inch indicated here, then it is pointless to set up a direct proxy as we will not have any connection ever. Alright, we will come back to it later. So, we have a remote server which has a direct address. Here we can set up a login and password. Personally, I won't do that. Instead I just press the Start Socks button. The GUI utility launched the 3 proxy, as you can see once I launched it, the manager connected right away. So, we have our 3 proxy launched with this type of config. Then the manager indicates our successful connection. Now let's go back to the manager window. Here it is. Let's just do everything from the very beginning. So, I've just disconnected, we do add socks, but I won't add it yet. Instead, I will copy it to the clipboard. As you can see, this is the last line, the same one that we have on our remote server. I'll cut it out, then I'll add it back. Since it remained in memory, it was identified as from the Netherlands. Let's now verify it. So, we passed the verification. And here we have a column named as UDP, it says yes. It basically indicated that this Socks has UDP protocol. Now if we connect this Socks directly to some browser, it won't work with the UDP protocol, as I said earlier. In this case we have to use it as a gateway or, for example, distribute it via Wi-Fi or an Ethernet cable or use a virtual machine or some Android emulator. In short, we connect it to the gateway. To do this and to launch the adapter we need to set the settings, go to Auto DNS, selected, then Virtual Machine Bridge, and through Socks. That's it, we have set our settings which are indicated here. Then we put a tick and start it. Now we have the virtual adapter started up as well as our virtual machine. In this case, we have VMware, which runs the same Windows version and which is connected to this Socks. Essentially, we can check this whole thing. Let's type whoa.net. By the way, with this type of connection the same DNSs that are the remote server will be indicated on this website. As they are Google ones, they are the same Google ones on the server. That is, DNS is supplied with Socks. As you can see, our IP address is the same to which we've connected, 238. Now, the most important thing. Let's check out if there is a UDP protocol. In order to check it, we go to the website called Twilio Work Test. Usually it requires captcha. Now pay attention to the first line, this is of high importance. It shows us all the necessary information about the UDP. That is, ping of the connection and so on. The first line won't be available if you don't have the UDP. It was the first test. Another one is WebRTC. It basically shows us the public IP address that equals our real one. This is not a spoofing, it actually shows the real WebRTC of our Socks. It can't be spoofed, it is as it is. Verification completed. But it was the easy part because I set this 3 proxy to a remote server which has direct access to the internet. It has a specific address which allows you to run any website on it. All in all, it has direct access to the internet and not through the router. I think you know what it means. For example, it will be impossible to connect to our PC if we plug a 4G connection modem to it and go on the internet as it doesn't have a direct IP address. It has a global internet access address through a COM tower, and this tower distributes all available accesses. What to do in this case? There are plenty of mobile services that have internet access and proxy set up. This proxy connects to a back-connect server. Basically, our connections always go to the same address, so-called distributor, with a direct address, and then to the proxy. If we tie 3 proxy with a back-connect, there will be immediate loss in speed, in connections that are highly important to us. For instance, in 3 proxy I have a max connect value of 10,000. We can perceive it as infinite, but many proxies support a very small number of simultaneous connections. It causes limitations in downloads, streams become queued and the proxy slows down. Therefore, if you use someone's proxy, ask them the total number of connections their proxy can support. It should support as many as possible in order to let you work comfortably. But this is not the point. So, if we connect 3 proxy as a back-connect, it automatically denies us the UDP protocol. Completely. Just be sure that there is no UDP. But there is a way I've already shown. I especially recommend adopting this method for those of you who deal with proxies. There is a network called Yggdrasil. Speaking about the manager, it also contains this Yggdrasil network. As you can see, its icon is green. This means that Double SSH Tunnel Manager has the installed Yggdrasil network on this PC. Now, we have the server with installed socks. Of course, here we have a direct IP address which allows us easy connection. But if we don't have it, what do we do then? In this case, we set up this network. It actually can be set up very quickly, then we press download peers. If we are in Russia, then it is better to choose Russia-based peers. Or, if we use the Netherlands-based socks, then it's preferable to use Dutch peers. Both options are recommended, as it provides a closer chain with a higher speed in comparison with other more distant countries' options. Thus, let's now select the Netherlands from the list. Here we press Install Peers. So, the peers are set up, the server is running, and the icon will light up green right away. Surprisingly, it doesn't run, so we press Service Restart. Finally, it lights up green. It means that this remote PC has connected to this network. And now look at what we've got. Another IPv6 interface appeared. Here it is. It can be interpreted as if our PC is connected via 3G modem and doesn't have a direct IP address. But when we set up the Yggdrasil network and then connect to it, the new interface of this very Yggdrasil is created, which enables our connection to it. We now can run a remote server and pin a socks on it, roughly speaking. And this particular 3 proxy socks will support the UDP protocol. As a result, any socks on any operating system with any network can be linked via this Yggdrasil network. Now let's take a closer look. Here I put the socks IP on refresh. Here you can see our Yggdrasil interface. And now we press Start Socks. Our local port remains the same, 10,287 inch. What do we do next? We press the button, go to the manager, then Options, and switch on Socks IPv6. Then we close it. You can see a new tab in which we insert our address in square brackets, then we put colon and write down 10,287 inch. The address appeared. Let's check it. So, we have Yggdrasil running both in the manager and on the remote PC. Now let's check whether we can connect using this address. As you can see, the connection is successful and the IP address is Netherlands. I draw your attention to the fact that our direct connection has IPv6 while the remote one has IPv4. And most importantly, we have the UDP protocol. By and large, we now have a backconnect proxy. It allows us to pin anything on this Yggdrasil network. And the UDP protocol is actually working. So, we put a tick and set settings accordingly. Go to Virtual Machine Bridge, through socks. Alright, all the settings are set up. And when we have our proxy run, the adapter will start too. Then we will connect a virtual machine to this adapter and check whether the UDP protocol functions properly or not. Well, we've connected successfully. Now we go back to our virtual machine. Here it is. And let's just refresh it to see if everything remains the same. So, we've connected to IPv6 and the output is IPv4, respectively. I have no idea why it doesn't indicate its DNS, maybe it's a glitch. Let's refresh the web page. Actually, it's quite interesting, as if the DNS did not work, then the sites would not open. It must be a website malfunction. Let's check it via Google Chrome, because websites cannot be opened without DNS. Somehow Whoanet can't identify it. Oh, now it works. Let's go back to the protocol. Once again we open Twilio Network Test, click through the captcha and check out the UDP protocol. As you can see, our UDP protocol passes through. Here we can observe a slight increase in connection, but it often depends on nodes. Sometimes the internet connection speeds up depending on which node of Yggdrasil network is applied. This network contains many nodes, and if you thoroughly understand it, you may find a high-speed one for yourself. Okay, let's check the WebRTC leak test. We can now close the previous page, we don't need it yet. As you can see, WebRTC leak test shows that everything passes through. Our public address is identified as IPv4 address. Everything runs well. So, let's comment a little more on the Vektor T13's video. Once again, there he advertises the best proxies. First of all, his proxies are without UDP. He made configs, but it's a completely different method. It's not a proxy at all, and it's quite difficult to make. Moreover, VPN is quite an arguable thing. Today, many local programs are capable of detecting interfaces. That is, if it detects VPN, it denies access immediately. What video to comment now? There is the guide on proxification, in which the author shares his own way to connect a virtual machine on his VirtualBox-based anti-detect. To be honest, I've never used it, and it would be very interesting to look at what the author has come up with and how this whole thing connects. The second method I found quite funny. He connects a virtual machine through Proxifier and, as if on purpose, he leaves a bunch of gaps. But actually he himself admits that there are many gaps and warns about it. Basically he proxifies the entire virtual machine but leaves a backdoor for the UDP protocol. That is, roughly speaking, going back and forth, sending packages and determining what and who you are. I think it's not quite good. And the third one is also interesting.
In this case, the UDP connection is also involved. Let's try to update our page. Well, WebRTC shows nothing.
Well, basically Vektor is talking about Ton2 socks. Unfortunately, Ton2 socks does not support the UDP connection. No matter what you tell people about it, it's incorrect. Of course, it supports DNS, but it's a separate branch made specifically for it. But that's all. There is no UDP. So please, let's give up fantasies. There are no UDP packages. As I've already shown, we can connect 3 proxy socks with UDP. Otherwise, there won't be any UDP protocol with that type of gateway, even if proxy is with UDP. So, what's next to comment on? Alright, the next one is how all proxy services will die. Protocol QUIC. Well, there is not much to tell about it. He explained it well regarding QUIC protocol. Besides, he once again alarms the public. For example, if you set up a program through Proxifier, this QUIC protocol will notify you about your real IP address. Let's start with the fact that the QUIC protocol is the same UDP, which blocks on its part. It will be blocked instead of running. With the correct setting of Proxifier, nothing will be indicated. It's quite interesting to see how he sets it up. Maybe he does it on purpose to raise suspense and scare you in order to draw attention to his own product. Well, it can be understood. All in all, it is not as scary as he describes it. Well, maybe some of these methods will be implemented in future. For instance, if you use proxies without UDP, then nothing will work out. Well, that's it. I hope I explained it clearly for those of you guys who want to create a proxy service, how to make a proxy server with the UDP protocol. You are free to use the yggdrasil network and the 3 proxy. This allows you to make a proxy with the UDP protocol. And there is my program called Double SSH Tunnel Manager, which is capable of working with the UDP protocol. That's all for now. Bye everyone. Thanks for watching. See you. Hello again. I forgot to tell you something. The yggdrasil network is not a simple one, it contains the traffic encryption. You may find on the internet some claims that it's not anonymous. But in fact this network has one feature. It can be connected through proxy. We can use a proxy, and as a proxy we can take the same TOR. Is this network anonymous or not? Personally, I think that it's quite anonymous when used properly. But the most important thing is that with the traffic going through TOR that uses TCP, this network resorts to encapsulation. In other words, the UDP protocol traffic passes through the TCP stream. Everything will work. Actually, this is some kind of an advantage in terms of anonymity. Now I think I've covered everything I wanted.